My name is Abraham Gutierrez, and I'm with the Housing and Tenant Protections Division of the Los Angeles County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. So we can go to the next slide. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can type them into the chat on Facebook Live. We have some folks with DCBA ready to provide quick answers, and if necessary, they can get your questions over to me to answer at the end of the presentation. So a little more on what we do in the Housing and Tenant Division. In addition to offering counseling and guidance on all landlord-tenant issues, we're tasked with the oversight and enforcement of the Rent Stabilization and Tenant Protections Ordinance, the RSO, and the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization and Mobile Home Owner Protections Ordinance, the MRSO. My division provides guidance on all California landlord and tenant regulations and regulations specific to LA County. I'd also like to mention here on the right a program that DCBA and its partners launched called Stay Housed LA. This program provides direct outreach and awareness campaigns for tenants, conducts Know Your Rights workshops to provide detailed information on tenants' rights, and offers free legal service for LA County tenants who are eligible. So what we'll cover today. The purpose of the webinar is to provide information on the county's new rent registry system. We'll be providing background on the rent registry, why it's needed, and what you'll be able to do with it. We'll give a summary on the rent registration requirements. We'll do a quick walkthrough and showcase of the registry's functions, and we'll also spend some time at the end of the presentation answering questions. So first we'll go through some background or history of the LA County Rent Registry. So why is the county introducing a rent registry? The Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County adopted the RSO and MRSO on April 1st, 2020. With these regulations came the requirement for property owners to register their rental properties and mobile home spaces. In addition, the ordinance requires payment of annual registration fees. And here you can see the Los Angeles County Municipal Code sections which detail these requirements. So the purpose of the rent registry. The LA County RSO and MRSO establishes rules for maximum allowable rent increases and require property owners to report changes to their tenancies. The registry allows the department to collect accurate data on rental properties and the amount of rent charged, and to keep record of any changes to tenancies. The registry provides a convenient method for property owners to provide this information and to calculate and make required fees. So who needs to register? The RSO and MRSO apply to all rental properties in the unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. This includes single-family homes and homes with units not registered with the county, like accessory dwelling units. So what are the unincorporated areas? These are the areas that are not under the jurisdiction of a specific city in LA County, but rather the neighborhoods represented directly by the Board of Supervisors. These areas include places like East Los Angeles, Lenox, Altadena, and part of Marina del Rey. If you're not sure if your property is in the unincorporated area, you can contact DCBA and provide the address of the property, and we'll tell you. Next, we'll talk about when the registry will be available. So as you can see by the graphic, the registry will be available October 1st, 2021. If you visit our website or our social media accounts, we'll be providing information, updates, and reminders throughout the launch and the entire registration period. Next, we'll talk about the registration requirements. I'll talk about important dates and fees amounts. We'll go over exemptions and talk about some considerations made because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So first, what do the RSO and MRSO require? As I mentioned, property owners in the unincorporated areas of LA County need to register each residential unit or mobile home space and make the required registration fee payment. This needs to be done every year before September 30th. Property owners are also required to use the registry system to report any changes to tenancies within 30 days. We'll talk about what specific information the system tracks and how it'll be reported a little later. So what are the annual registration fees? Here we have a summary of the fees charged and the municipal code sections where you can find the information. You might be wondering why there are different fees for the RSO. This is because while all rental units are required to register, they're not all subject to the same level of regulation. Partially covered units or just cause only units are the units that are not subject to the rent increase limitations, but still provide tenants with protections for evictions by requiring just cause to terminate a tenancy. These will include all single-family homes and any residential unit built after February 1st, 1995. For these units, as you can see, a property owner would be required to pay a $30 fee. For fully regulated units, those are the units that are subject to all of the provisions of RSO, including the rent increase limits. These are units in multifamily home properties built before February 1st, 1995. So these units would require a $90 fee. For the mobile home rent stabilization ordinance, all mobile home spaces are regulated at the same level and require a $90 fee to be paid. So registration fee pass-throughs. So can the registration fee pass through to the tenants? The answer is yes. A property owner can pass up to 50% of the registration fee to the owner, but they must meet the following requirements. The fee has to be paid on time. So anytime the registration fee is late, a property owner may not pass on that fee to the tenant. The fee can't be included in the total rent and must appear as a separate line item. So the pass-through will not be included when calculating rent increases on a yearly basis. The property owners must notify the tenant with a 30-day notice explaining the pass-through. The tenant must be allowed to make the fee payment in 12 equal monthly installments unless the tenant agrees to pay otherwise. Are there any penalties or late fees? So yes, like I mentioned, one of the penalties is that if the fees are not paid on time, the landlord will not be able to pass through the registration fees to the tenant. There's also a 10% late fee assessed on any outstanding balance still unpaid after the registration deadline. In addition, any rent increases subject to the RSO and MRSO will not be enforceable if the fees are not paid in current. So DCBA has the ability to waive the penalties if good cause exists to do so. So if you don't think you're going to be able to meet a deadline for any reason, you should contact DCBA for assistance. Which units are exempt from the RSO? So units that are exempt include those where the property owner themselves is living in the rental unit, units where the rental unit is not going to be rented out for the next 12 months, units that are rented out for fewer than 30 consecutive days. These would include hotel guests, residential units that are used for non-residential purposes, being commercial units, and units that are used by a property manager who has an agreement to not pay the full amount of the rent that otherwise would be collected. This would be in exchange for their services acting as a property manager. So which spaces are exempt from the MRSO? So mobile home spaces that meet exemption requirements in the mobile home residency law, or MRL, are exempt. So these are units exempt specifically or expressly by state or federal law. Other units that are exempt are mobile home spaces which are initially held out for rent after January 1st, 1990, mobile home spaces used or rented for non-residential purposes, and mobile home spaces owned, managed, or operated by a government agency. So there have been some changes due to COVID-19. The county understands that everyone has been impacted by COVID-19. So in consideration of those impacts and because of the county's own shift in priorities over the past year and a half, the fees for the first year will be waived if a property owner registers their rental units or mobile home spaces on or before January 1st, 2022. So here you can see a chart, details the deadlines for submission and what someone will be charged, what fees a property owner will be charged if they register during that time period. So while fees are waived and the deadline is extended to September 30th, 2022, property owners still need to register their properties in order to be in compliance and avoid any of the other penalties. Next, we're going to get into an overview of the rent registry itself. We're going to talk about what property owners and tenants need to do with the registry. So the property owner portal. This is the portion of the registry system designed to help landlords meet the requirements of the RSO and MRSO. They will use the registry to provide property updates. This includes things like claiming ownership of a property, updating property information, and registering their units. They can request exemptions, like we discussed earlier, before completing the registration process, and they'll be allowed to apply for exemptions directly with DCBA. You can also report changes to tenancies as required by the RSO and MRSO and pay their fees. The registry is also a place where they can receive updates on their cases and communicate directly with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. So the tenant portal. Like the property owner portal, this is designed for tenants to use to ensure that their rights are protected. Tenants will be able to make their rent adjustment requests with DCBA, track the status of these cases, and communicate directly with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. One feature that's available to both tenants and property owners will be the ability to use the registry to find out if a property is subject to the RSO or the MRSO. So what will property owners need to register? The registry is accessed online, and you will need an email address to create an account. You'll need to have a property's assessor's parcel number, and you'll need to have an identification number for your property. These are specific to each property that you will need to claim ownership of it. So how do you get these? Each year, a notification is going to be sent to the mailing address associated with each property in the rent registry. The first letters are going to be getting sent out to the mailing address currently on file with the county. But after this year, property owners can use the registry to update their mailing information and have the new notification sent to wherever they choose. In this letter, we'll provide a summary of the registration requirements and provide you with the property APN and the PIN you'll need to claim that property. It'll also include a summary of the fee structure for the current registration year and all of the important dates and deadlines. If you don't receive or you've lost this letter, you can contact DCBA for assistance in obtaining your PIN. So these letters should be going out in the next couple of weeks in preparation for the launch of the registry October 1st. Next, we're going to spend a little bit of time walking through the rent registry. So once you have your letter, a property owner can access the rent registry at rentregistry.dcba.lacounty.gov. And this is the first page you'll see when you reach the website. After this, you'll be at the landlord login page, where you'll be able to either log into your existing account or create a new account. So in this section, you'll click here to create a new account, and this is where you'll provide an email address and receive a confirmation to create your account. The Landlord Dashboard. This is the home page for property owners when they log into their registry. This one we see here is blank, but this is what you'll see when you first log in. Here's where you'll also find the option to switch to the tenant portal. And this is a feature for property owners who also happen to be tenants within the County of Los Angeles, so they can use the services provided in the tenant portal as well. So from here, you can click the Add Property button on the bottom left and begin the first step of the registration process. So claiming the property. So after you click on that button, you'll see this pop up, and this is where you'll enter your APN and PIN and have the ability to verify the property address by clicking the Verify button. So after hitting Submit on this page, the property will be added to your dashboard, and you'll be able to review the property details page and begin updating your property records. Here you can see the APN and PIN number included, and then this is where you would click Submit. Once you've done that, you'll be able to access the property details page. This is what it looks like when you click on a property. On the top of the page, you can see the APN provided and basic information, including the regulation level. In the middle of the page, you can find the number of units on file with the county, the current registration status, the name of the property owner, and the year the property was built. On this specific page, we see a few red notifications that are letting the property owner know that some information is still needed before the registration process can be completed. A property owner will need to designate a property manager to receive communication from DCBA if necessary, and this can be the owner themselves. The second notification we see on the page is a notification that at least one unit needs to be added to the property before registration can proceed. You can see the blue Add Unit button here on the bottom right of the details page. And on the next slide, we'll take a look at what you need to do to add unit information. When you click on the Add Unit button, you will get this first pop-up. A property owner can designate the type of tenant occupying the unit. In this example, we're going to select a tenant for the occupancy type. There we go. And we can advance it one more. So we can see all the fields that the registry will track and the information required for registration. Some of the important fields are the number of bedrooms in the units, when this tenancy began, the base rent charged in this unit, and the base rent is whatever was charged on September 11th, 2018, or if the tenancy began after this date, what the rent was when the tenancy began. Another item you need is the current rent and the last time the rent was increased. At the bottom, we can see selection of fields that need to be reported to DCBA, which will affect certain termination of tenancy requirements, such as timelines and relocation assistance amounts. Once the fields are filled, the property owner can click the Add button to include the unit in the property details page. So next, we'll take a look at making exemption claims. So here we see a property with 2 units added, and the blue action button can be clicked to apply for an exemption. If a property owner believes an exemption should be made to the tenant unit, they can use the action button to apply for that exemption. The ability to request exemptions is only available before the registration is submitted, but we can discuss that a little later. So, unit exemption review. When you request an exemption, a UE case will be created, or unit exemption case, and you can monitor the status of that case at the bottom of the property details page. While DCBA reviews your request, the status might change. But here in the case information, you'll be able to see the UE case includes a case status, and you will notify the property owner where in the process of the case this case is. So after you make your exemptions, you can prepare to submit your request. So preparing for submission. Once you have entered the information for each unit on the property and completed the process for any exemptions requested, a property owner can move on to the next step of registration and submit their registration case for review by DCBA. The red text in the middle of the page can be clicked, or you can use the Review and Submit button at the bottom of the property details page to move forward through the registration process. Once you click either of those options, you'll see this pop-up. This pop-up will require you to confirm that you've made all requests for exemptions and declare that the information you've provided is true and correct. If you think you've made a mistake or need to make changes to the registration information after you submit your registration from this page, you'll have to contact DCBA and request that it be moved back to an earlier period of registration so you can make adjustments. But once registration is submitted, the department will review your case, and if no issues are found, the case can be moved into the payment pending status. DCBA may contact you if more information is needed or if there's a problem with your registration and it needs to be denied for any reason. It will give you an opportunity to fix any issues DCBA finds. On the next slide, we can take a look at the fee summary once registration is submitted. Paying registration fees. So after your registration is approved and your case is moved to begin the payment process, the fee summary will appear on the property. In your shopping cart, it will also appear in your shopping cart on the home page and in your Rent Registry case information. If you need to register multiple properties, the registry will provide a full summary and breakdown for the total fees that need to be paid. You can find this in your shopping cart. So after payment is submitted, you will receive a receipt and the registration process is complete. So some features will still be coming soon a little later for the registry. Some features are planned to be included at a later date, and these will be announced on our website and on our social media web pages. Property owners will be able to make requests for rent adjustments, request pass-throughs for capital improvements and primary renovations, and they'll also be able to report terminations of tenancy. So that completes the guide for us. If you need more information or any additional resources, you can visit our website for information and materials on the registration process. You'll also be able to find comprehensive written material on all of the functions of the Rent Registry. And soon we'll be adding links to our YouTube channel where you can find guided walkthroughs on the registration process. Next, we can get into see if there's any questions you have for me. Okay, take a look. I'll wait and see if any questions have been submitted through Facebook Live. Okay, yes, so one question we have is if we'll be doing this webinar in Spanish. So yes, I guess I'll provide a quick summary. Si necesitan esta presentación en español, vamos a tener otra presentación más tarde, hacerla todo en español. Y si están interesados, estén pendientes en nuestro sitio de web y hacemos el anuncio para saber cuándo van a hacer eso. Okay. Another question we have is how does this affect people who are on Section 8? So recently, changes were made to the RSO and the MRSO to remove exemptions for folks on Section 8. So units who are subject to Section 8 will still be fully covered to the RSO, barring any exemptions that have been made that we discussed earlier. Okay. Why do we need to register single-family residences? So this is because, like I mentioned earlier, single-family residences are still partially covered under the rent stabilization ordinance. So if they're being rented out to a tenant, they need to be registered and a fee still needs to be paid. But we are aware that the majority of single-family residences are owned by individuals and a property owner will live there. And this means that those units will more than likely be exempt and not be required to pay any fees. Would units rented under Airbnb be subject to the RSO? So that more than likely will be covered by the exemption under whether or not the unit is rented out for more than 30 consecutive days. So for those specific cases, if a unit is rented out by Airbnb for more than 30 days, you probably need to contact the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs for us to take a look at your specific case. We'll be able to provide you more details. But I think generally, if it's a short-term rental, they will not be covered by RSO as long as it does not cross that 30 consecutive day mark. Okay, getting some more questions. Do all rent increases go through this system and do you approve them? Yes. So like I mentioned, all changes to tenancies, including rent increases, need to be reported to the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs within 30 days. This is so that they can be reviewed and the department can ensure that the maximum allowable rent increase limitations are not being exceeded. So if they are exceeded and they're reported through the Rent Registry, that will create a case for DCBA to go in and take a look at it. And any errors, the department will be sure to contact landlords to let them know of the errors and either have them fixed or find out exactly what's going on. Okay. We have a question of how do we get the PIN for the property? As I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending out notification letters to the mailing address on all properties subject to the RSO and MRSO. So you should be on the lookout for those in the next coming weeks, and those letters will provide you with your APN and your PIN and kind of instructions on what fees need to be paid and where you'll need to go to access the registry. Let's see. Next question here. Would a parking fee separated from the lease be subject to the RSO? This is an interesting question. So generally, anything that's paid on a monthly basis for a tenancy, whether it's separated as a line item, is considered part of a tenant's rent. So more than likely, yes, it will be subject to the RSO and included on the whole for part of the tenant's rent. So if the tenant's rent is $1,000 and their parking is $100, their total rent is considered to be $1,100 generally. But again, giving out specifics on what a rent increase might be, it's a little bit easier if you contact us and give us specific information and we can take a look at that case. Okay. How will landlords be informed? Informed of the registration requirements. I think we covered that a couple of times now. So we will be sending out notification letters, letting a landlord know that their property is within the unincorporated area of LA County. And at that point is when they'll need to either contact us to give us information about why they should be exempt or not exempt, or go into the registry, claim their property, and begin their registration process. Does the RSO include ADUs? So I did touch on this briefly. Yes. So if a single family residence has an ADU that is being rented out to a tenant, it would be considered then fully covered. So in those cases, if a single family home is being rented and the ADU is being rented, the landlord would need to report both units into the rent registry, and the registry would calculate the fees as if that property was a multifamily. But again, those kinds of specifics, if you do have more questions on that, or if you think your property is special under some certain circumstances, you can give us a call and we can take a look at the property information and maybe give you more specific answers. Okay. What's the difference between SCEP and RSO payments online? So that's the SCEP. That program, I believe, is for the city of Los Angeles's RSO, and that is their own program to ensure habitability within the city of Los Angeles. So here we're talking about a new program, or I guess not new, but the RSO and MRSO we're discussing here are specific to the unincorporated areas of LA County. So the SCEP fees will not be a part of this program. If you are receiving notifications about SCEP fees, chances are your property is in the city of Los Angeles and subject to their rent stabilization ordinance. Okay. I have a comment that says, it is my understanding that single family residences are not subject to rent control. That is correct in the sense that the rents that are charged for single family residences cannot be limited, and the RSO and MRSO don't do that. So what the RSO does for single family residences is provide eviction protections for tenants and do limitations that require just cause during termination of tenancy. So single family homes that are subject to the RSO, those are charged lower fees, and they are not subject to the rent cap limitations. So the rent can be increased to whatever the landlord wants, but evictions on those properties are still limited to just cause. The Rent Registry website. The Rent Registry website is rentregistry.dcba.lacounty.gov, and I think it'll actually be on the next slide once we get through these questions. Will this presentation be available after so we can rewatch? Yes, this is being recorded and should be posted on our YouTube page and to our website not long after we're finished here. Okay. Does this apply to all units, including new constructions? So Again, as we discussed with the partially regulated units, anything that was constructed after February 1st, 1995 will only be partially regulated by the RSO. So new multifamily properties will only be subject to, as I discussed, the just cause provisions of the RSO. Again, if you have specific questions about that, if you want us to take a look at your specific property, we can do that. You can give us a call. We could pull up the property information and tell you exactly what provisions that property will be subject to. Is the fee per unit? Okay, that could be a lot of money for a property owner. So yes, the fees are for each unit, but as we discussed, 50% of the fee can be passed through to the tenants. If we go back to those slides, or if you go to the recording, you can see that there is a process for a portion of the fee to be passed on to the tenants. Okay. A comment now. I can't imagine all property owners will complete this process. Is there a longer period beyond December 2021 where the fees will be waived? Not currently. Currently, fees are only waived if a property owner can register their properties before January 1st, 2022. Since we'll be launching here October 1st, we'll obviously be paying attention to that, see how it goes. But like I mentioned, the late fees at least could be waived if there's good reason for it. But we'll be keeping an eye on that. But at this time, fees will not be waived beyond January 1st, 2022. Where can we find more info on the language in the RSO? That you can look up the municipal code for Los Angeles County. I posted it here a few times in the registry, but I'll pull it up for you now. 1 second. So for the rent stabilization ordinance, it's the municipal code 8.52. So if you go into the municipal code, that's where you'll find it. And for the MRSO, 1 second. You can find that on 8.65 of the municipal code. Okay. The next question here, where or who can we contact and where can we find information online about which properties are subject to rent control? Wouldn't some properties fall under state rent control depending on the year built? Yes, that's correct. So, well, that's the answer to your second question. The first question right now, before the registry launches, what you can do is you can go onto the assessor's website, lavote.net, to check and see if your property is under the or in one of the unincorporated areas of LA County. Or you can contact our department and ask. All you need to do is provide a property address, and we could take a look at it and find out exactly where in the county that property is. As far as the second portion of your question, wouldn't some properties fall under the state rent control? Yes, there is some overlap depending on when they are built. So again, it will depend on the specific property, and it'll be easier if you contact our department with your property information so we could take a look. Because yes, it could get a little bit complicated, and there are some cases where some portion of the state rent control will apply, and some sections of the RSO or MRSO will apply. Okay. So we have a question here about single-family residences. For fault and no-fault evictions, they do not apply during the pandemic. Restrictions are removed, correct? Yes, that is correct. I'm sure most of you are aware that there are special restrictions on an eviction moratorium currently in effect in the county of Los Angeles and in the state of California. So yes, if you have specific questions about those, go ahead and give us a call. But generally, yes, evictions right now are not possible, at least for no fault reasons, because of the eviction moratorium currently in place in California. Okay. We have a next question. The PDF on the website advising a maximum rent increase of 3% through June 2021. Is there an updated document including the maximum rent increase as of the new fiscal year? I don't know if it is posted. I believe it should be, but if it's not, the next increase allowed is also 3%. Let me see. You can also visit rent.lacounty.gov for more information. Let me take a look. Sorry, I hope that answered the question. We'll definitely take a look at the website and make sure all of our materials are up to date and current for the current registration period. The next question is there a form that we can use to notify the tenants of their 50% responsibility of the RSO fees? Not currently, but we can definitely make a note of that and consider making that available. Might extend a little bit into offering legal advice, but we can definitely take a look at it and see what we can offer. But you know, the requirement is not spelled out in a lot of detail in the RSO. It really is just a 30-day notice letting them know that the fee will be extended to them, and notifying them that this is allowed based on the RSO and MRSO. Sorry, a correction a little earlier. The lavote.net website, where you can go on and check whether or not a property is in the unincorporated area, is actually the Register Recorder's website, not the Assessor's website. I do apologize for that. Yeah. So the next question is, if our property is in an incorporated area of LA County, what program covers it? Is it city-based then? Yes, so there is a statewide the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 covers a lot of properties in LA County in the unincorporated area and in the incorporated cities. But more often than not, yes, if you are within the city, the main example is the city of LA. City of LA does have its own RSO program. If you're in one of the other cities in Los Angeles County, some of them do have rent regulations. If you give us a call, we can kind of look into that, maybe provide you information on those. But at a minimum, we can tell you who you need to contact to find out. Okay. Next question. If your property is subject to the RSO, the at-fault and no-fault eviction protections will remain in place. Let's see here. Sorry, this is just a comment. You can contact us for more information just on the at-fault and no-fault protections. Again, let's see, our phone number. It'll be posted on the next slide, but if you need it now, if you want to give us a call, it's 800-593-8222. Yeah, I don't know if, there we go. Maybe we could just advance this slide. Once we're done with the questions, I'll be giving you a thank you all for sure. Let's see, how do we determine the cost for this registration that can be passed on to the tenant? So it is 50%. Yeah, anything you are required to pay through the registration, 50% of that can be passed on to your tenants, and that is detailed in the RSO. You just go take a look at that, and if your tenants have any questions, they can either call us or they can refer to the municipal code to take a look at that. Okay. So we have some confirmation that it will be 3%. Let's see here. Okay, next question. I have a single family home and I pay for all utilities. I have a family member living there rent free. Do you still have to register the property? Yes, you will still have to go through the registration process, but use by a family member, or you know, if you're not actually renting it to this family member, that would be considered for an exemption, and that's something you could apply for through the registration process. Okay, and the next question, can notices be served on a single family residence if the house is being sold for tenants to move out, if we have a purchase contract for new buyers to move in? So that probably referring to an exemption in the statewide eviction moratoriums, where it would be the case, but anything subject to RSO and MRSO, that would not be allowed. That would not be a valid reason to remove the tenant. The purchaser of the property, there is a method if their intention is to occupy the unit. They would go through the no-fault eviction process with the County of Los Angeles. So no, that would not be an allowable reason, but there are other ways for a purchaser of the property who intends to live in the unit to successfully remove the tenant. Okay. Next question, and I see this might be our last question, is would the increases apply to Section 8 renters? Yes, the RSO and MRSO were recently updated to remove the exemption for Section 8 renters. That means tenants who are in the Section 8 program will still be covered by the full protections of the RSO and MRSO. Okay. Might still have a couple more questions coming in. Go ahead and wait on that. Again, in the meantime, on the screen, you can see our contact information. If you have any questions we haven't gotten to, or if they're very specific to your property, please don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email. Okay. So far, new questions, still waiting. Again, you can send your questions through Facebook Live, and the team will either answer them there or pass them along to me so I can answer them on the stream. Okay. So the next question, is there a manner in which applications can take place via paper? Yes, we're currently developing a paper form that property owners will be able to use to fill out and send to the department to register their units. All of that information will still be going into the online rent registry, but yes, there will be a paper application for tenants to register their units if for some reason they can't access the online registry. If you're in that position, feel free to give us a call. Again, the registry won't launch till October 1st, so the paper document probably won't be available until then either. Okay, go. The next question is, can we serve rent increases now to unincorporated RSO properties, or can we start October 1st, 2021? So currently the eviction moratorium and the eviction moratorium in the County of Los Angeles prevents rent increases right now, I believe. I believe that's still in effect. Let me see. So until that expires, rent increases are impossible, but right now I believe it is set to expire at the end of the month. So if you have not given an increase within 12 months, you will be able to, if and when that eviction moratorium expires. So that, yeah, currently they're prevented through September 30th, 2021. The Board of Supervisors is, I believe, meeting next Tuesday. You should be sure to tune into that stream to find out if there's going to be any changes or any extensions to that. But yes, right, you are correct. Right now, rent increases are frozen, but not because of the RSO, only because of the eviction and rent freeze moratorium currently in effect because of the pandemic. So yes, like I said, keep an eye next Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, where they'll possibly decide on any changes or extensions to this. But right now, we're not sure if anything will be coming. See. Okay. Looks like we still have some questions. Team can let me know how we're doing. Again, if you have any questions, please get them in now on Facebook Live, and we'll either answer them or I'll try to answer them here on the stream. Okay. Next question is, will paper notices regarding approval or denial of exemption applications also be sent via paper or only online? So for exemptions, if you're applying for the exemption in a paper document, more than likely you'll be in direct contact with somebody at the Department of Consumer Affairs, talking you through the exemption process or requesting documentation from you. And through that process, you'll be informed of whether or not the application will be approved. Generally, though, like I said, you'll be registering your units in paper form, and then all of that information will be uploaded to the registry by DCBA. Again, if you're not able to access it, you'll just have to contact DCBA to see where in the process your case is. But like I said, if you're doing it through paper application, more than likely you'll have someone dedicated to reach out to you and give you updates on your case. Okay. So we have one more question coming. is room rental subject to the RSO? So that it will be specific, but generally, if the tenant is considered a lodger, that means they're renting a room in the property where the owner lives. They would not be subject to the RSO, but it starts to get a little bit more complicated once there are subtenants or there are more than one tenant renting rooms in the property. And in those cases, it'll be better off reaching out to the department to ask so you can kind of explain to us exactly what the arrangements are for each of those tenants. But generally, like I said, if a tenant is considered a lodger, they will not be subject to the RSO projections, but definitely better for you to give us a call so we can take a look at your specific situation to find out. Okay. And I think that is the last of our questions. If you have any other questions, we didn't get to any of your questions, please, here on the screen, give us a call, send us an email if you just have comments. We will take those and we'll try to respond as best we can. And again, thank you all very much for being part of us. And we all look forward to the launch of the registry and helping everybody get their units registered and be in compliance with these new rules. Alrighty. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.